All right, all right. What's happening, guys? I have Clark Kent today as my guest, and I'm very happy to be talking to him. We're going to talk about probably just everything or whatever. If you know Clark Kent, he's the one that wrote the proposal for what he felt the wearables market, maybe the direction we should go in. I don't plan on just talking about that for the whole time, but a lot of people know Clark from that. So that is my guest for today. What's happening, Clark?
What's good, man? How you doing?
Everything good, man. You know, just been just working hard. You know what I'm saying? Doing a bunch of interviews and doing what I got to do over here. So it's fun. You know.
I love it, man. That's great.
Yeah.
Keeps you busy, right?
Oh man. It's gonna be. You know, I've been on my Mana Monday shit. You know, we got this Barry Silbert thing. So I've been kind of like joking that, you know, tomorrow's Mana Monday. You know.
Oh yeah. What time? They're doing the walk tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I think it's
the walkthrough.
Yeah, I gotta double check on that because I gotta make 100% sure I'm on point for that. But I believe it's at 2:30 my time.
Okay.
I can't remember though. I know I
gotta check that out.
Yeah, I have an interview tomorrow with Steve Wan, which is probably gonna be like a great interview, and I'm really excited for that. So that I'm very much looking forward to. And then right after that, obviously the Barry thing is gonna be just amazing. I'm hoping everything goes smooth. I believe I'm playing backup cameraman for that situation, so that's, you know, I feel good about that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
yeah,
cool.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's big. Do we know how many people he's walking through with?
No, I mean I don't. I mean I bet Maddie has a way better idea than I do. But,
Yeah.
You know, I'm along for the ride on that one. You know, I'm really just like hanging. You know.
Cool.
I think
that's awesome.
My role is essentially having a good enough computer to record everything and do that, you know.
Gotcha. No, that's going to be great. Yeah, Mana Monday is probably a good name for it because when those guys get involved, that stuff does pretty well.
Yeah. So
cool, man.
We actually had our I guess what people think is our pre-having dump or post-having dump a little early.
I saw that was 10 minutes. Like everything dumped in 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, to me, honestly, I love seeing that, man. I was like right into my, you know, I'm trying to, you know, buy a little bit more, you know, like that's literally, you know, that was my plan right there. So, you know, I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I think that after you've been into the space a little bit, you're just like completely unfazed, like 15% down. Cool. Hit the buy button. Like you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's been interesting because I've been just trying to accumulate more mana and get in that way. And so when Bitcoin goes up, it's nice to just be able to buy some mana. You know, I don't have a ton of cryptocurrency across the board. I kind of stick to the main ones, and then I have a decent amount of mana because I really like this project. And so I think, you know, whenever I see an opportunity to get, I still think mana is super cheap right now. So if
my move has been
if I see opportunity,
has been like I'm holding, you know, I hold ETH, I hold mana, and then when I see one break from the other, I go and I flop. And you know what I mean? I'll swap, and then I will I'll make my way back to mana eventually. Usually, you know, I like to be in mana since we're in the project, and you know, it's a really easy way for us to all interact. You know, usually from anybody from the space that you can kind of like work with them in mana, and they'll work with you. You know,
for sure.
There's that. I've been working on building an Axie team, so I've been kind of giving those guys some ETH, so I got to keep some ETH. You know.
Cool.
So that's that. Yeah. So I guess we can get started with the proposal since we never really actually got to speak about it, just me and you. Now, I don't know. Let's just run through like the main points. 'Cause I know that we could just, you know, we could pick the whole thing apart, but you know, this is not what I'm really trying to do. You know, like let's run through a couple of the main points. And I guess I'll let you get started on just like the overall.
So I guess, I mean, I've kind of said it a few times. The reason I wrote the proposal wasn't so much because I thought there was like this huge problem that needed solving, right? I kind of was looking at, you know, this was kind of the first time that people were really talking about putting a proposal to the DAO and what that would look like and, you know, how that would work. And I kind of started to see, what some of the other proposals were looking like. And I kind of had my own view of the level of detail and whatnot that needed to be in there in order to make a proposal viable, no matter like what the proposal was going to say. It was like, if you want to do it this way, totally free market. If you want to do it with the DAO, however you want to do it, you got to like lay it out step by step by step by step on how it's all going to work. Mm-hmm. And so my first thing was just kind of like, all right, like my background is in law. It's in, kind of structuring these things and putting together proposals and memos and whatnot in a more structured way. Yep. So I kind of just wanted to create an example of what that would look like. And so that was kind of the base idea for me. And then I kind of thought, okay, like what do I, substantively think is an important, balance between some of these ideas of creativity mm-hmm. and the other side being scarcity. And because I have a ton of wearables and, so I'm pretty invested in the market. And I think, having that stuff makes you kind of have a view on how things shake out. But I also come, from a family of artists, and I love doing the Blender stuff and kind of creating. And so I think there's a pretty cool is an important all this, balance between some of these. And so for me, it was kind of like, how do you balance both? Because I think the system that we use for user created wearables will balance mm-hmm. both scarcity and creativity. And so I kind of looked at what I saw some of the team proposing, and it kind of looked a little too restrictive to me. It kind of said, look, we're going to go through, we're going to have curators through the DAO who are going to be able to essentially whitelist wearable designs that they believe are the ones that appeal to them or that they think are going to sell, and then they can stake the mana and put it to a DAO vote, and then that specific collection might be put forth to the market. And that was kind of what seemed like the basic concept to me. Yeah. And in essence, that kind of, struck me as a little too restrictive, because first you got to convince a curator, then you got to convince the DAO, and that's all just to get one collection forward, And so I was looking at that and I was like, all right, I see the appeal there, and I see how this might be a good use case for the DAO, but I don't necessarily see that as being the best balance between creativity and scarcity. Right. And so I guess the whole proposal was kind of driven by a few concepts. One, the main thing was creating a seasonal type thing, right? Where 4 times per year you had these releases, and that was going to be kind of it for user created wearables. And the DAO would vote on the amount of them. The DAO would vote on, the degree to which the different designs might increase and how many of each rarity and all that stuff. And you could kind of set that at the beginning and then kind of let it go from there and have it be self-executing. So you don't have to have a DAO vote every single time
you want to mint new one,
right,
or whatever it is.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And so my thought, which I think is going to be something that people really need to discuss with the DAO, and I don't want to get into it too much mm-hmm. here, because I think it's kind of a different discussion about the DAO more generally. But what I proposed for the actual method of selecting which wearables get in is more of a one vote per user system. And, I don't have a technical background, so I don't know how something like that would be implemented. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to kind of these community and economy driven stuff, I feel like you gotta have something that's more democratic, mm-hmm. And I get how the DAO, so for me, the DAO is interesting as an investment vehicle, right? And when you look at the DAO, from a few years ago and kind of how that experiment played out, and some of the DAOs that have come from that, they've all been investment vehicles. They haven't really been governance schemes, and some of them kind of, go ahead.
No, I'm seeing that a lot of the people kind of are looking for the DAO to be an investment vehicle as opposed to a governance. Now, of course, you have a lot of people that want to see what it can do as a governing model, though.
Right.
So, do you think that we go with maybe voting on something with the DAO? That's the thing, is we haven't even used it yet. It's like a tool we haven't even used.
So my view on the DAO, and I kind of, just for a little way of background, like I've worked with venture capital firms and done some of the legal work there. I've kind of seen how that plays out, so I get the incentive behind it, right? Mm-hmm. I think with the DAO, the main use case for me that is less debatable is using it as an investment vehicle. And so if you bring it out and you roll it out and say, look, the DAO has 220 million mana vesting over 10 years, and you've got to get that mana out somewhere and figure out how to distribute it. I think that the DAO, as kind of currently conceived, can be an effective method of doing that, right? Because I think my main quarrel and issue with the DAO is that it kind of concentrates power, right? Like, no matter how you cut it.
And I saw it that way when I kind of just looked at it. I was like, because again, if you are holding a gang of mana, if you're a district leader and stuff like that, then it starts to be not necessarily how does a guy like me, okay, let's use me for an example. How do I weigh how important I am to the project? I'm not holding a gang of mana. I have only a couple lands, but right. I mean, it's pretty clear that I have a pretty big active member,
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the issues, right? As soon as so in my mind, if you separate it out and you say, okay, how okay are we with, 30 or so wallets, 50 or so wallets, the district leaders and the huge mana holders kind of controlling the DAO, right? And maybe over time that becomes less, and maybe there's things we can put in place to reduce that. But when you're looking at how okay we are with that happening, right? I think we need to ask ourselves, what are we okay with that doing? And why does it make sense for people who have invested a ton of money into the project to have control over things, right? And I think when the question is who controls how money that's been delegated to the DAO gets distributed, I think there's definitely an argument for, well, if someone's going to control it, it should be the people who have invested the most money personally into the project, right? But I think that conversation changes a little bit when you're just talking about governance, right? Because governance is more about the users, what's going on a day-to-day, decisions that'll affect the platform, and not just how money that's been allocated is going to be distributed, right? Whether how the value of that. So I do see an argument, an economic argument for why the DAO makes sense in terms of distributing kind of the venture capital funds that have been contributed to the DAO. I think you get, kind of the question you asked becomes a bigger issue with governance, where it's you're clearly, a huge member of the community. You're clearly doing things on day to day, bringing things in. And I mean, I think in the current system, the answer would be you have to use your influence to get a seat at the table. Some of the bigger mana holders, the districts, you got to use.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And that's the kind of, you have the kind of the word of the people, and you bring the people in, and that's, it's in the benefit of the bigger mana holders to kind of satisfy the user base, because at the end, the user base, I think, is what makes this project unique from other projects. And it's what's going to drive with the current construct of the DAO, where you could affect governance. But I don't think that's the only way to do it. I think there are other ways where the DAO doesn't necessarily have to be the only method of voting on things. My view is that the DAO is going to be broken up into more segmented groups. And I think that you're going to have things like committees, and you're going to have things potentially, a separate kind of community voting system, which is kind of going back to the proposal, what I proposed as the method for selecting which wearables actually make the cut every season. And that was just kind of like a one vote for user, find some way to verify it, because I know that's probably the biggest issue, is that you just have, people faking accounts and whatnot to influence things. But I think that, if you put some basic roadblocks in place, there's got to be a way to create a one vote per user type system that's kind of an alternative to the DAO for more of these kind of community measures. And I don't know, maybe that'll be something that we see in the future, maybe not, but it is what it is in that respect. It's the DAO's not perfect, but I think there's an argument that, at some point it needs to be rolled out, and some point sooner rather than later, because those funds need to get flowing, and so my view has always been, let's get it out there, let's get the funds flowing, but let's do it at first as an investment vehicle and not do it necessarily as the governance scheme. And we can kind of start building governance aspects into it.
Yeah. So now what I've noticed with the team, I don't think the team necessarily is looking at the wearables as such a priority like we are. And I don't know, honestly, I think that we all kind of talk about it a lot, but I think that if you ask anybody seriously, I don't think their main concern is better than even,
Right.
So I don't care, but I do care about the project's health as a whole. And one thing I noticed recently was, so I don't want to throw a project under the bus at all, but CryptoVoxel's road in the original city. This caused a big issue with the organized that wasn't just open, and that maybe if Ben, because I believe Ben is the guy, right? It's not like a team, right? So if he was able to maybe have made some money off of that, would he be releasing this land? Now, I'm not a genius, so you can maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is, in my brain, us having a healthy wearables market on some level is helpful. I don't say it don't have to be I don't know. I think there has to be some sort of balance between just opening it up and letting it be nothing, and having some sort of structure. I think that we should be going along some sort of structure that we all agree upon. So maybe it's not what I want it to be with because what essentially I basically proposal I wouldn't call it, because I was just talking to team members, right? But I did talk to team members about what I felt it should look like. And I was into a licensing process where the team mints a certain amount of licenses. Those get bought by however we decide who can create and not create wearables, which I felt that had to do a lot with, I don't know, maybe a couple of different factors, but definitely artwork, definitely community involvement and stuff like that. And then you'd be able to buy those at, there's a certain limited time and a limited amount. And I would also like to see people have to do well. Let's say selling epics or commons or whatever first before they're even given the opportunity to make anything like a legendary or a mythic. So we make legendaries and mythics be a thing. That's me. I'm not saying everybody, is in the same boat. I honestly don't care. I'm over here, I'm doing the radio. So what I have to do is give everybody's opinion out. Now, me and Will were having a conversation the other day about that same kind of subject. I don't have to sit here and agree with anybody. And I don't have to argue anybody. I'm just here to get put your opinion out there, But I did want to mention that's where I was thinking. And then when I saw what you were doing, I like that idea as well, But one thing I don't like is the idea of just opening it up to anything and then have it be just completely not a thing anymore. Why? I know all the people who trade them and stuff. We're having a blast, So
yeah.
I think that you would be taking an element of fun away, and why would you take fun away?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's kind of where I was at too. I was kind of struggling, and actually, I had heard about what you had proposed with licenses, and Anorak kind of talked to me about that as well. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a good idea, and I actually folded that into the proposal because I kind of saw, okay, like one problem with the proposal doing it this way is that, only 30 or so people are going to be able to do this. And what if, Amazon wants to come and just print T-shirts with their logo on it? Mm-hmm. They should have a way of doing that, and maybe it won't affect
that in, and how you charge them a gang of money for that. And I like the idea.
A lot,
I like that. Yeah.
And I think that I feel like that is the way that you can kind of balance it. Is you create a money incentive, but you make the money incentive. So what I tried to do was build in an inflation model too.
Right, yep.
And I think that if you have a wearables proposal, whatever it is, there's two options. One, you can either try to figure out what the prices are going to be every single time, mm-hmm. or you can kind of run an algorithm that calculates it based on, what the prices have been mm-hmm. over the, past 2 months. And so if you inflation adjust through an algorithm, I think, which is what I was kind of saying you could do.
The only thing with that is then you're going to have like okay, and maybe you can explain this. Maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about, but like in my eyes, okay, you got the Bitcoin glasses that ended up becoming legendary of legendaries. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Where you had like there's not many legendaries to sell for the kind of prices besides the masks that the Bitcoin glasses sell for. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then even with the masks, some of them are minted, so it makes them a little bit more rare.
Right.
So I think that, you got to have a model for different ones that did better, but maybe, that is built in there and I just didn't really catch it,
Well, I think the way that it works, right, in my mind at least, is that the algorithm, again, these were just like, I'm sitting at my computer, and I'm like, oh, this could be a cool idea that might work. Like, mm-hmm. I feel like if we were really going to do this, every one of these ideas would have to be hashed out, kind of, how does this work? Okay, this is a problem. And I kind of wanted that, I kind of wanted feedback on each point. But the way I kind of saw that working was you kind of take an average across the market, right? Mm-hmm. You get every single legendary. What is the average price of every sale for legendaries across the past 3 months or 2 months or whatever period you determine would give you a nice good average. Yeah. And so maybe you have 500 sales to work from, and you'll have your set of outliers that you could either exclude or not exclude, and you get some average, right? And that average is just the starting point for the new wearable. And I think that's the important part, is that this would just be to determine what the price is from the pre-sale or whatever from the sale, however you're going to do that at the market. And so let's say the average price of a legendary ends up being, 1,000 mana. That's going to be where it starts. So any legendary that these user-created wearables are put out for the original sale, it's going to start at 1,000 mana. That's not going to change the second. I mean, you could, once that supply is sold out, that 100 or so items, they could become the Bitcoin glasses, right? Right. They could shoot up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000.
Because if you look at how the Bitcoin glasses were originally distributed, Cabo was the creator. He was given 30% of the supply, which essentially would have been him paying for his portion, right? In, let's say, your model, even my model, just like he would have paid for that on some level. So that's his 30%. His 30% is essentially what he would be making profit if you were, to look at it that way. The team took the 70% and they gave them out as prizes, which was helpful for them because a lot of people were able to enjoy those prizes one way or the other, right? So, I think that there was already kind of like that thing going on, that like they because when Cabo sold out, so, because I was a part of this, I definitely got a lot of the Bitcoin glasses. So, like, when Cabo sold out, now you knew it's game time. Price goes from here. You know what I'm saying? So what was happening before he sold out was like, they were going, like, it's crazy. I got some at 500, right? Maddie got a few at 500. Yeah. I've got one at 1,000, and then I got rid of one at 2,500, like, in 3 days, right? Mm-hmm. And then Cabo started getting his out. They were going at like 11 to like 12, 1,200, and all the way up. I think he ended up going all the way up to like 15 or 1,600 or something like that with the ones that he let out. Okay, then once those got gone, then it's just the market doing what the market does. You had a couple people left that got them for free, and then most people had seen the value at that point and they held on to them. You know?
Yeah.
And you kind of got it where we are now, and I don't know exactly what the number is. Last time I looked, it was 5,000. You know?
Yeah.
So I think there should be a level of that going on, but I also like, okay, I don't know if there should be just one way to do this. Like, Will talks a lot about proof of work. I'm in as well, and I think there should be a room for that, but I don't know if that should be the only way to do it. Like, for instance, the block runners should be able to have a proof of work model if they want, as well as DAppCraft, who are looking to do that style. But I don't want a proof of work model. I want to sell mine. You know, I want mine to go out on the market. So, and especially because what are you going to do? You've listened to 7 podcasts, so now you get a Frankie wearable. Like, you know what I'm saying? Right. So, like, I think that there's got to be some sort of like a model, something that we can all use. Like, okay, let's say, for instance, there's some sort of pay like to get in on the wearables. Then you pay to get them, and then now if you want to do the proof of work, then you can do the proof of work style. And if I want to go ahead and say, nah, I'm not going to do proof of work, I'm going to sell them outright, then I can do that as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think that's kind of the idea, right? And I tried to fold that into my proposal too, right? Thinking, okay, you might have some designers who are just creating like awesome stuff, who they know it's going to sell for higher than the average, right? And so what I was thinking was that designer could have the option to buy out the whole stock at a price. And if they do, so if they do, they could use whatever model they want to release them on the secondary market. They could either just sell them, or they could do some sort of proof of work if they want to give them away. And I think that, it's really going to depend on what you're trying to do. And like, if you want to use it for promotional purposes, maybe you'll give them away, if someone does certain things. If you're making a mythic and you want to, you're the Gucci of Decentraland, and you want to just drop these things down for like $2,000, $3,000, then you're not gonna go through that. What you're gonna do is you're gonna buy them all at whatever, if it's a mythic, maybe the mythics are only worth, $100 or $200 or $300 on average. So you pay that, you take your whole supply, and then maybe you have a store in Decentraland, right? And you display those items and you sell them that way, and that's how you keep your supply.
So now, me and Maddie and all of us, like a couple of guys, we were talking about the idea that they're going to be putting out, and I don't know the details of this, so I'm going to just briefly touch on it, but of like having the Genesis Plaza be a place where you can make NFT transactions for very low fees, and I think that would add an element of like going out and selling your own stuff manually. Like, I joke, I'm like, man, I'll be out there like, I got t-shirts. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like a thing like that, because, you know what I mean? You'd be like almost like the hot dog vendor at the baseball stadium or something, and then it would be a way but, it was funny because I was saying, what's going to happen when you're going to have like all these new users, and then you just got me down your back, like, hey man, I got this for this much. I got this for that, but, I think that it could be an interesting thing. And then we brought up the idea of possibly even doing just any NFT. You could sell any NFT, like, so you would have like an in-game open sea.
Yeah, man. Well, and, so I've heard a couple of things. I've heard that support is coming for NFT sales on your land through the builder. I think that's going to be huge, right? The ability to sell an NFT easily, drop it into the builder, and then link to the marketplace transaction, and then someone could literally just come to your land, click on it, buy it, right? But that's not really what you're talking about. No. I think that would be great for like art and stuff, because you can actually see it. You can see it on a wall.
More importantly, though, if you were to be able to go to Genesis Plaza and buy an Axie, right? But you didn't have to pay the money that you pay, the extra fees you pay for OpenSea, then you would have a situation where people might say, hey, meet me in Decentraland. Let's make that transaction. That way it's a little cheaper. The fees are cheaper. And then,
No, yeah, I think that's the way to do it, man. I think that I don't know if you played games like RuneScape or kind of these other open world games where it's commonplace. It's been commonplace forever to have marketplaces where people are just standing there saying, selling this, selling that, selling this, selling that. And you just say the price, and then you go and click that person. Yep. You give them so much mana, they give you the item, and that's that. I mean, that's like a very, obviously, I'm sure you know, that's a very common thing that games have. And it's a really good way of getting people actually in the world. And so then the question is, what's the benefit? And like you're saying, the benefit is, I think, twofold, right? It's the same benefit that people have on the forums when, you go into the Discord chat and people are advertising their items and you find someone who's interested, and then you can actually negotiate with them. And I think that's going to be, part of it, is that on OpenSea, you post the price and you have the offer feature, but you can't really go back and forth, or even on the marketplace, you can't really go back and forth. So there's no like aspect of striking a deal that you could totally have in game. And I think that would be a huge reason to go into the game to a marketplace like that if you want to sell your items. I think another benefit is you can actually show them on your avatar. So if you want to sell like if I want to sell my razor blade jacket, people can see it right now, so that's a plus. Whereas on OpenSea or the marketplace, you can't.
Exactly.
But
because I remember, okay, for instance, like before, man, this is the back in the day shit, but before, there was no third person at one point, and so you had to see it on someone else,
Right.
So,
right.
I think that, the whole idea of just being able to see it in action is actually something. Like, for instance, the only person I've ever seen with these rollerblades is Iron. Never seen another person. And I tried to buy them, and like Iron was saying, he probably mortgaged his whole house to get those damn things, Yeah. And like, again, I didn't know if they rolled. I didn't know if you walked with them, if they gave a whole different animation, which they should, but whatever,
Right.
I will get into that stuff, like, I think that, that we literally could like do a lot more with animations, but we have to just have the patience, because like, we're going to get some more emotes coming soon, but then more emotes is going to spark the imagination. Now you're going to want the rollerblades to roll, and you're going to want everything else.
Right.
So, I think that we're going to have a little bit of patience with the animations, because I'm sure we'll be able to get them in the near or later future, just because like it'll make sense,
Right. No, I think that's right. And I think you got, the idea of having people get into the game, just for any purpose, get people into the game or into the platform, right, and have them interact with each other. I think that's what the team is really focusing on right now with all the different features that they're trying to roll out. Absolutely. It's how do we get people into the world?
Yeah. And you want people, and I was saying yesterday, like, okay, we do pretty good here as far as keeping people for a good amount of time, but you need games. You need these other things that are going to keep them in world for a lot longer. You can stay in world and listen to me talk for an hour, and then I got my radio station playing 24 hours a day with a bunch of different podcasts, which is very good information. But you're more likely to stay for 7 hours if you're grinding something. So there is a huge use case for what I'm in, and we'll talk about with making some sort of proof of work, and I think that should exist as well. But I always kind of hark back to, I come from the world of like Madden and 2K, and those things have auction houses, and I'll spend my whole day in the auction house. So, and I know, you got the Litecoin Moses of the world that do the same thing here. Just like me, when I first started off, I spent my whole day, let's call it the auction house, in OpenSea, trading and buying and selling wearables. And to me, that was the game until I got more involved. But who's to say I would have been, I was pretty involved already, but who's to say I would have been doing what I'm doing right now if I didn't buy and sell wearables? I don't know, because I did really well financially. So it was a very motivational thing to, like, all right, cool, I killed it with that. What's next? Okay, you start to look into what you can do with the land. You start to look into, because you have a better feeling about what's going on. So I think there's just a room for everything. I would hate to see it just get put to everybody just makes anything, and then things start to be not fun. And that's my only thing is like it should be fun,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that wearables are going to be a really interesting aspect of the game. I think that how it develops and how the market opens up for wearables, I think is going to be something that kind of has to happen fluidly. I think if you have enough daily active users, you can support a freer wearables market. I think that there's also other ways. I think you could support wearables where the wearables only have functionality on someone's land, for example. And so, for example, if a I don't know, some sort of dungeon crawler type game comes on and they host it on some land, you could have just a completely plain wearable that has no value outside of that land, but because people like that game and the wearable interacts with that land, it gives you certain features, it makes your character stronger or faster, whatever
kind
it
of
is.
Value,
Right. So but maybe
that also same time it gives it like almost no flex value because you got it and it's cool. I mean, I guess if you're the man at that game, no, it does give it a flex value. So I'm actually wrong on that. I get that.
I think the values just depends on how popular whatever the game is. Right?
As soon as I said what I was saying, I was like, no, that's right. Have you been following this whole whale coin thing?
No. What's going on?
All right. So Whale Shark is an investor in NFTs, NFT art, crypto voxels, Avastars. I can't remember what else he's invested in. I don't know him that well, But basically, the guy is coming out with a token called Whale Token, which is going to be based on his wallet full of NFTs. So, I was just wondering how you, basically your opinion on the subject. I know I'll just give you the shortest overview, but essentially he's out trying to buy the most expensive, rarest NFTs in hopes that they would appreciate in value, and then you would be able to buy a whale token to essentially be involved with his and they're supposed to do a DAO as well to be involved with the decision making process and everything when it comes to the wallet.
Yeah, so shout out to DCLcore because that is illegal, but
okay.
It's a violation of securities law, but we don't have to get into it. Whatever, but no. So I mean, the general concept,
again, I'm not the guy that I'm sure he could tell you a way better version of that. I don't know. He just did it. Did it, and you got to listen to the interview with Andrew Steinwald because he definitely.
I'm just messing around.
All right, so there's better information. I'm like a hood dude. You know
No, I'm just messing around. No, I'm sure there's a legal way to do it, and the SEC wants I did a little bit of this 2 or 3 years ago when when the ICOs were first starting to happen and the SEC started issuing all these subpoenas to figure out if these tokens were securities. I represented a couple of them, and it was just a nightmare because no one knew what was going on. There's a whole lot of complicated legal issues there on whether or not what you're doing would be considered a security and whether you have to do KYC things and all of that, but we won't get into that. Yeah. I think what you're asking more is from an investment perspective and whether it'll work. And I'm kind of skeptical about that. The investor in me is kind of skeptical about NFT backed. I guess there's other ones where it's has to do with sharding, where your shards of I've seen of land and other NFTs have been. I'm not sure what the project is called, but I've seen it.
Rocket NFT. There's a couple of different things like investment tools for NFT. Yeah.
Right. The idea of being able to break up an NFT into parts, I guess, and sell those parts, I think is an interesting use case. I think you need a really, really put together system on the transferability of the NFT itself in order to really be transmitting any real value. Because I think that there's risks when you get the investment aspect of it without any of the utility, right? And I think one of the problems with land, for example, is that land, a big part of the driver of the value isn't just the fact that it'll go up or not. It's that it has some utility, right?
Well, it's also because what you do with the land, so what your the specific work you do on land will directly affect, the valuation of said land. I just put up the my other plot of land for sale, and it's playing my radio station. It's got my meme tower, and I'm selling all that with the land. So, I would imagine that, I'm not really trying to put it for the lowest. For instance, I'm not. That's not going up for the lowest priced 2-plot estate. Why would it? Right. So, I think that it's very based on your ability to make things happen on said piece of land.
I think that's right.
I want to switch gears a little bit before because we've been going for a little bit, but the Blender thing. Now you have gotten really good with Blender for somebody who's newer, and I know a lot of people are trying to learn Blender. And I was just wanted to talk a little bit about it. About I don't know general subjects, I guess, but I've noticed with you, you've got baking, down to a point that I'd like to be at, and maybe sometime I'll try to get with you about learning that. I've just been so busy with the radio station that honestly I'm like, this cool, something's up, but I haven't got a chance to really, dig in too deep. And, I've been lucky to be working with KJ and Fran on a bunch of projects when it comes to Blender stuff. So I'm just really lucky to have good people around me, so I don't necessarily have to be breaking my head trying to do every single Blender thing,
Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun to learn,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely fun to learn. It's fun to, to use your creativity. Do you have any advice for some of the newer guys? Because I know that, like I said, again, there's a lot of newer people who are looking to figure out where to go. And I know we all know, maybe we all don't know, but we all know the donut video. There's a donut video. And definitely I think you should start with the donut video just because of home keys. But what were some of the avenues that had you basically picking up so quickly on it,
It's funny. It's funny you say that because literally an hour and a half ago. So I've been trying to kind of get my Twitter up and running and figuring out how it's going to actually be useful. My goal has always just been, what can I do to onboard people? So the other day I did a giveaway where I gave away a basic store that I created in Blender. And that was just, how can I get people to put cool stuff on their land, even if it's just me, taking a few hours to put something together and give it away, right? Yeah, rather than, really sell it. Yeah. And so, so I kind of thought, all right, what else can I do to be helpful? And it's funny, an hour ago, I was thinking, you know what? I am by no means an expert on Blender. I by no means know really what I'm doing, but I know enough stuff now to kind of be able to do some cool stuff for Decentraland, right? So I was thinking it might be cool for me to put together a video, half hour long of someone who doesn't really know how to explain the technical terms and just in plain English, how do you do these things? I'll use the wrong terms. I'll use it, but look, this is how you make something invisible. This is how you, make it see-through. This is how you put a texture on. This is how you make the texture less reflective. And I probably won't be saying, oh yeah, the alpha value of BDSF, whatever, it has to be this. I'm like, no, you have to click this button that says whatever, and that'll make it like, just like kind of like this is how you do it at a really easy level. And this is what I've learned, and take this. Right. Yeah. And so I guess to your original question, my thought, or kind of, that's something it's funny because that's something I'd like to do. But separately, how I learned was, same thing, man. Just watching videos and playing around with it. I, started off just building squares and rectangles and, cubes and spheres and whatever. And every time I wanted to do something, I kind of just Googled because I like the videos. It just takes forever. So like I kind of, if for me, it's like, okay, how do I flip the thing so that everything's interior facing? Well, I could watch videos and try to learn that somewhere in the video, or I could Google it. So I just, in that case, I Googled it, and that was a really cool skill. But I think the biggest thing is textures, frankly. I think once you learn the how to, I guess, so there's a couple things. One, you just get the basic shapes, right? Learning how to use loop cuts and other types of cuts to split up the basic shapes, how to bring other shapes and combine them. Those are the basics, and that's, get a great video. But texturing, I think, is what makes or breaks, the thing. And I think the important part is to just find a couple good royalty-free texture websites that will give you high-quality textures. And so the one I've been using, I'll just tell you guys the website because I just have been using one that's pretty good. It's called 3djungle.net. That just happens to be one that I found that has pretty high quality textures that are royalty free so that you can use them. And so I did that, and seamless textures are very important. So once you get that down, you just learn how to texture an object. You could turn a cube into just something that's really cool in a matter of seconds. And it's so easy to kind of go between textures and play with it and all that. And so that was my thing. I watched a couple videos. I probably spent literally 2 hours watching videos, and then just kind of went from there, learned the basics, and then just started Googling anything I didn't understand. Decentraland actually has some good tutorials that you can look at on the docs page. For how to use Blender for Decentraland.
Definitely. Yeah, one of the things I did was once I got through the donut video, I started, okay, well, I want to make this. Then look up somebody that made that. You might not use that technique exactly, but that person is going to give you a lot of different insight into how to go about making whatever the thing is that you're doing. Because I've done it for several different things, whether it's a building or I made the necklaces or whatever it is, those things, were specific videos that I looked up, watched the person do that, took hints and, little things from that, modifiers that I didn't know existed, and then, keep adding to what I'm trying to do. All right, this is specific to what I want to do, but I want mine to look a little different. I want mine to look like this. I might throw a decimate on it so I can try to, bring down the tries and
right.
And so you're working with that too, so because what I was doing was messing around with jewelry for wearables, and that was like, well, that's gonna, like, you're literally dealing with, like, you got to do 500 tries for an accessory,
right.
So 500 tries is tiny. You start to, like, damn, I gotta have these big links on the necklace, because you make it work, and then still want to make it look good,
Yeah, so one thing I've been playing around with that I actually think is really useful for kind of these purposes is if you just get on like Sketchfab or Google Poly, they have a ton of low poly models, right? And so once you learn how to retexture things, how to delete the old textures and bring in new textures, you can take something pretty cool that someone's already created and kind of make it your own. And I think that is a huge time saver if you're not a 3D modeler, because what you can do is you can, and usually you want to give the person credit in your scene somewhere on your model or in a little sign because they did create the model. And that's usually the license that, they make it free on Sketchfab under. And so usually you want to do that even if you're retexturing it. But there's a lot you can do with that. Like an example, I got a model of Lionel Messi that already had an animation of him kind of juggling a soccer ball. And so with virtually like not a lot of Blender knowledge or whatever, I was able to retexture that, and I threw a launch shirt on him, and I actually like put my face on the model instead of Messi's face.
Yeah.
And so it took me like 2 hours to do something that would have taken 100 hours if I did it from scratch. It just wouldn't have been possible to do it from scratch.
Yeah. Now, have you gone
down? So I think that's cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sorry. Have you gone down the normals rabbit hole of like starting high quality and then breaking it down and then trying to keep your normals and mapping your normals?
No, man. I I haven't. I think the only thing I've done with normals is learn how to flip them, which was like the huge thing for me. Was because if you don't flip your normals for certain objects, you can't. It looks different on the outside than it does on the inside.
Okay.
And so if you flip them, you can kind of create interior type spaces or whatever. But no, man, I haven't gotten there yet.
No, it's funny because I don't remember what it was. I showed something to KJ, and she's like, "Hey, you better watch your normals on that." And I'm like, "Normals? You just sent me down like that's 10 hours." I can't look at normals right now. It's like, geez.
No.
But that's that's Blender, and that's why everybody's gonna find their angles of what's what they can contribute to the game. And as much as I do like playing with Blender and learning Blender, I realized once I started doing the radio is that this is kind of like my thing. So I'm lucky to have this kind of set up, and anything I need to do I'll do. But lately spending any kind of like time like that on a video has seemed to be just like not what I need to do right this second.
Right.
So I've been kind of away from it.
It.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the neighborhood project as well, if you have one quick second.
For sure. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's talk about it.
Now, obviously, I don't know if everybody's seen your building in the neighborhood project, but your building is the round table building, which is really, really cool, actually. Cool concept that we all have a space at that table, and I'd love to do an actual neighborhood round table. I think that Scorpio would be up for that. I think that we'd have to actually, it'd be a coordination because there's quite a few people on the neighborhood project.
Right.
But a neighborhood roundtable would be really good. Now, your thoughts on the project as a whole, and I guess I'll start there and we'll kind of get into a couple things.
Well, I think thoughts on a project as a whole, it's awesome. It's an awesome concept. I think there are a lot of issues that need to be worked out in terms of like how everybody plays nice together. Not that no one is. Everyone's been great so far. It's just when you put 22 single parcels next to each other, you are going to have a clustering effect, no matter how you cut it, right? So getting everyone to kind of do it in a way that makes sense, where you can actually see what people have created, and you don't have music playing over music over music over music, and just it's actually a pretty good idea, like thought experiment for what will happen when the game, the platform becomes more congested generally. But I mean, having 22 people who are all active, all kind of spawn in a spot in game and talk to each other and have a connection, I think that's the reason I went. I couldn't. If my creation, and I think some people are using it as a method of building their only parcel, right? And that's tough. I think like I like that there's a few people in there that is their only parcel, because that's cool, right? And it's the perfect place to get your only parcel because it's. But that said, the clustering makes it a bit difficult, to really do everything you want to do with that single parcel. Now, that's not me. I have other land, so I've been messing around with my other land. So I thought, okay, like for the community project, what is something I could do that would just be really cool for the community? Not necessarily like this is my parcel where I want to do my thing. It's like, what could I build that the community can use? And so I did that round table. And I mean, it's cool. And it allowed me to kind of, that for example, is how I learned how to do a lot of texturing and with higher quality, images in Blender. And I was learning as I was creating that. So that's kind of what I've just been trying to do. Is like, as I learn, I publish something to a new land or whatever it is, but yeah, I think it'd be awesome to have everybody get in there, or at least a bunch of people.
On the subject of the neighborhood and like playing nice, now we've got a couple people that have local sounds that span a good amount of distance.
Right.
Your music plays pretty far away. I believe somebody else has a like music playing that plays pretty far away. Now that's easily fixed by running it on a stream. If you had like the whatever sound you have just hosted on a stream, and then that would be fine.
Right.
But it's something that we do have to think about. And if we're going to be using localized sound, should we be using it at a certain sound level?
Yeah. So I wanted to have it. I didn't want to have to run a stream, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought there would be a way with the code to do a localized sound that doesn't extend beyond your parcel. And I'm still not sure that there isn't. Mm-hmm. There might be a way to limit it to your parcel. And if anyone has that code, that's what I'd like to do. But for now, all I did was I turned my sound.
It's funny you say that, because when I was looking at on pointer events, there's like a distance thing, like so you can kind of input how far you are from the object before it prompts you to click it.
Right.
I wonder if there can be if there is something similar, or maybe even just something you can just code up just from just logic,
In my view, so, go ahead. Sorry, I don't think there should be any ability to play sound beyond your parcel, period. I don't think that the platform should support that. I think that they should build the Explorer in a way that you can't do that. Because I think that the consequences outweigh the rewards. I think that by doing that, you're going to have people trolling on land, messing with people's parcels and broadcasting sound that shouldn't be broadcast. Right. I just think that
like for instance, like sometimes it's the other day I did a podcast with Litecoin from my parcel in the neighborhood, and I kind of had to stand pretty far away from my parcel because I didn't want to have anybody else's sound, in the middle of what we were doing,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So,
if I could change it, I would. I mean, if I could get code,
that's what the experiment's for. I'm not worried about it. I don't have to do anything as far as from broadcasting sense, go to the neighborhood to do my broadcasting, but I'd love to do it there a lot, once, 2-3 times a week, to promote the project itself.
Man.
I'll continue to do it, even if I didn't, even if I can't stand on the parcel, but it's a little bit more fun if I'm standing on the parcel,
Right. So go ahead.
No, I think that day was a little bit different too, because we were doing it. It was a Litecoin Moses podcast, so I wasn't necessarily. It wasn't really. I was just broadcasting it. And so what that was we were doing it in Anchor, which I couldn't separate the sound. Normally, I can separate my computer sound and the sound that I'm getting in the Zoom chat, whatever. But it was under his, the way he does his podcast, and I didn't want to mess with that because. If it's his podcast, it's his podcast. I want him to do it his way, So, speaking of that, I'm going to actually get a chance to talk to him a little bit later on today. Something super casual, probably later on tonight. So that, if you guys are around, that'll be fun.
Sick.
Yeah. Also,
so one thing.
Yep. Go ahead.
On the same subject, because I've been having so much trouble with this, is I have a 20 parcel. That is where I build most of my big stuff over by Dragon City.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things, the reason I bought that area way in the beginning was because it had Temptation Club on it, which I think is still Decentraland's only strip club, but it was definitely the first strip club. And it's just an awesome structure and that I thought was really cool. Yeah. But I don't have the load file. So I bought the land and I have it. And I know you know about this, but one of the problems with that parcel is that it's got very loud music and the music, it's bombing, and it's also not, you say what you want about it. I don't mind it, but it's got curse words. It's kind of vulgar. Yeah. And it plays for 100 parcels in any direction. Yeah. And so I've got, that's on 6 parcels. I've got 14 other parcels around it that I want to do stuff on. And I would love to be able to limit that sound at least on my parcels,
right.
And so
have you reached out to Cyber Mike?
Yeah, so I don't want to get too into the private discussions, but basically it was sold to someone else, and I haven't been able to get that someone else's permission to give me the load file, just because they haven't responded. So it's kind of stuck in a loop. I'm hoping that there's going to be. I'm going to do some research and figure out to see if there's like a back end way for me to modify it, or to get the load file. I've heard that there are some ways. But I think the key is going to be to try to figure out how to turn that sound down, because for me, that sound is limiting, right? I'm actually in the process of building a stadium on the other 14 parcels that I want to be able to run sound through. Yeah. And I don't want that other sound in the background. And like you said, Swiss has the club there, and it interrupts his club, and it makes it harder for him to play music. So I'm kind of actively trying to figure out a way to solve that issue, but the alternative of publishing over it is just not realistic to me, because I don't want to lose that, because I think that's kind of like one of the staples of, it was, from what I've heard, the team used to hang out there.
It's a historic, what do you call it? Historic monument or something like that?
Yeah, it basically is at this point. And I was trying to get the team to like just do something about it. And I'm hoping that I've been distracted with other stuff, but I'm hoping that next couple weeks I can get a solution that allows me to not have to publish over it to stop.
The issue I think a little bit is that I do think that Cyber Mike sold it, so then you have somebody that bought it, and so you got that going on. I'm sure you'll find a solution. I'm not too worried about that, but I do I do want Swiss to be able to succeed and be successful in his ventures and stuff like that,
For sure.
Have you seen the jail across the street from over there?
It's so stupid, man. Well, so the jail sucks. It has a stupid siren that's every time someone presses it, I can hear it from my parcel, which is so annoying. The good news is that Dragon City is being completely redone. Exactly. And so in the next, couple months, they're going to have a brand. I mean, I frankly think Dragon City is going to be one of the top districts into Decentraland, which is why I bought a ton of land near Dragon City. Yeah. But the problem right now is it's one of the uglier. They actually published, which is nice, but it's one of the uglier districts, and that jail is like the staple of why. Why do we have a jail?
What I did? I walked through Etheria the other day, and they've got somewhat of a build up. They've got a floor. And then they've got some. It was weird though, because they had a floor, which is just like floor with neon light, and then a skate park. And I'm like,
that's funny.
Like just a weird thing to have up there to start. Like I'm gonna start off with a skate park. I mean, I guess I-Man can hang out there, but the rest of us, there's no real reason to go to a skate park. I'm hoping that I hope that place turns out to be something a little bit more efficient than that.
I think it will. And so like the Dragon City, I didn't know. I was kind of on their case and like, guys, what's going on? Just because I had a lot of land there, and they just released a proposal. It's in their private Discord, and I think it's called Meta Labs is the company / whatever they have there that's developing Dragon City. And so they have a proposal out, and they said they're going to release their initial center city by the end of May. So we'll see next few weeks if something drops. It's pretty cool though. You can kind of see their plan. But I think the Asian contingency is in this game is something I don't think we're quite exposed to.
Oh, I think that's going to change English the game. Discord, even though Will sent me something earlier today, they wrote an article in Japanese about the meta zone right here, and that's what we're talking about. That's what we need. We need different languages. I know I'm going to see Indigo's gallery right after this. And I'd like to get Indigo to do a show on this radio station in Spanish. And I'd like to see more people do different things like that in different languages. I'd be really open to somebody having a Chinese episode, a Japanese episode, all kinds of things.
For sure, man.
Because we need that kind of representation. I forget what game. I know I've been thinking about this. I forget what game that somebody was telling me about. Or maybe I was watching a podcast or listening to a podcast or something like that. But like the game was based in almost every other country besides America, and it was like, wow, they had that market, and it's like we've kind of got like a really like America, Europe, Australia. I would like to see more of Asia and Africa and different parts of the world more involved in Decentraland, and I think that languages will just be a big difference for that. If you come across a video that is now in your language, and it happens to be about Decentraland, hey, let's check that thing out,
Yeah, so I actually, funny that that's kind of an interesting subject because there's a couple things on that. One, I was talking to the team probably a month and a half, members of the team, about a month and a half back, and they were because we were talking about the laws and what laws you have to comply with and where the marketing's being done. And it's funny because when I was talking about it, I was talking about U.S. laws, and they were like, "Oh, the project isn't very U.S. focused. It's more broadly focused on other markets and whatnot." And that's cool because that tells me that there's a lot going on that I'm not being exposed to because a lot of the people I'm interacting with are in the United States, and that's because we're on English forums, and then there's a lot of Europeans who speak English, obviously, and some, Latin, but the whole team's Argentinian, right? And the idea that we're going to promote to South America is, the whole team, the original, the founders are all a bunch of Argentinian guys, and a lot of the, some of the others are in Europe and whatnot. But that's cool. And then I was thinking the other day, actually, I don't know if you saw, I think you saw it. I wrote, separate from the proposal, I wrote like a 20-page wearables guide, which was not meant to be like, it was just meant to be like, introduce, how do you use wearables? What are they? All these different things. And we won't get back into wearables, but my thought was, wouldn't it be cool if someone could just take that and translate it into Spanish, translate it into, Mandarin, translate it into Japanese, or forget my thing, do it with all of the Decentraland documentation, and blast that out. Because as soon as the Asian countries get involved, man, it's going to be a different market. You're going to get, not, and there's some degree of English speaking, but when you get like native development in that language, where you can attract people who are fluently engaging in their language, I think that's where this really blows up. That's how we appeal to the rest of the world and make this project different, is by bringing in a world market, and the money will follow. There's a lot of money over there for projects like this, and there's also great developers, man. That's the other thing. The content would be amazing.
Yeah, like Maddie had reached out to somebody on I can't remember the name of the website, but it was a website you put out like an idea. Hey, I'm looking for this, and somebody will help you out. And the person that helped them out was, I can't remember for what country. I think it was like Singapore or something like that. And it wasn't that expensive, first of all, and and the work was done really well. And he was talking about that, how he uses that for his other businesses, and how that sometimes you can find people to work on a project maybe a little cheaper from a different part of the country, a different part of the world,
right.
So, not that I'm just like trying to like start a sweatshop, but what I'm saying, I'm in general just saying like maybe we can have some sort of other involvement. Your guy looks crazy when he walks. That's scary as hell. Yeah, man.
I was showing you
into that at all. I'm out of
this here. Is the glitched item that deactivates all the it deactivates.
I had the head and I never had the whole outfit. I had the head and the torso. But that is scary looking. I'm not into that.
That's actually the reason I bought it. I thought it's kind of creepy.
I'm out of here. So don't follow me.
One thing we haven't talked about on wearables which I'm cautious to go back to it because I don't want that to be my MO, the wearables guy. But there's pretty big news that has been hinted at that, we haven't really gotten into, and that's the likelihood that they're not going to be minting any more of the previously minted wearables. The Christmas set, the masks.
Like, I don't even want to say assuming, but I mean, it's what makes sense, man. Come on, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's why I really didn't touch on the subject. It literally, like, I didn't touch on the subject because it literally is what makes sense. But, you know,
I agree with you. Other people don't agree.
Yeah, but, again, I'm fun. We'll cut that shit there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's fun, and it's fun to have some rare shit. So, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into that, and I do want to get to Indigo's party. So I'm going to...
For sure, yeah.
We're going to
talk about that some other time.
Exactly. But, like I said, I think keep it fun, and that's going to be the key to bringing people in. So let's have a little fun, you know what I mean? That's about it.
For sure, man. I'm at Metaverse NFT if you guys want to look at the Twitter. But other than that, thanks, man. I appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember the coordinates. I'm terrible. I know it's close. It's like 56, like -70 something. Indigo's party, Indigo's art gallery. So if you get a chance, go check him out, man. Go support his cause. Appreciate you guys supporting my cause. Like I said, I can't even thank you guys enough for showing up all the time and hanging out and and spending the time. So I really appreciate that. Support Will in the meta zone. I'm putting out a new meta with KJ Walker very soon, and it's going to be the car, the concept car with the light up wheels. So definitely go check it out there. That's a good way to support the channel, All right, man.
Very cool.
I will talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Take it easy. Which ones were minted pre-launch or not pre-launch. And so I also think one thing that is going to get a little more popularity are low mintage items. I don't think there's really been a focus in this initial surge because they're harder to identify. But in terms of like collectors,